All right, everyone. This is Jeff Tom. We do have a quorum, and so we can call to order the November 21st Mobility Advisory Council meeting. So we will begin with introductions. We will first do MAC members, and we'll start in the room, and then we'll go to Zoom. We'll go to my left. I'm Jeff Tom. I am the chair, and I also represent the ACB Capital Chapter California Council of the Blind. We'll go around to my left.
Gene Lozano. I'm representing people with visual impairment on the member at large, and I'm the chair of the Access and Infrastructure Subcommittee.
Alyssa Backrack, member at large.
Frank Trujillo, I'm a member of the National Federation of the Blind of California from River City chapter in Citrus Heights.
MAC members on Zoom.
Pam, you want to go ahead? You can go first if you can unmute.
Thank you. Pam, member at large representing seniors.
Okay, Helen.
Oh, I found it. Helen O'Connell, member at large, TCMP chair.
Thank you. Who do we have any other members on Zoom?
Pam, you have your hand up. Can we lower it at this point? Pam? Okay. I don't see any other members on Zoom.
All right. So we will now go to staff in the room. And we'll start with Austin, since he's on my right, and go around from there.
Sure. Austin Greiner, Accessible Services.
Kathy Sagen, the Paratransit Operations Manager. Holly Martinez, Customer Advocacy.
Tabitha Smith, Clerk to the Board.
Henry Kutukwa, VP of Capital Program.
Blanca Araujo, VP Operations.
Anthony DiCristofano, AVP Operations.
Is that it for?
Do we have any staff on Zoom?
Yeah, Priscilla, why don't you introduce the Zoom staff members so we don't have total chaos on.
Okay.
If you can do that.
Yeah, first let me just say that German joined us as a MAC member. German, I promoted you to panelist, German. As far as others from SAC-RT, I've got Casey Courtright. I have James Drake and Rowan Brandt. I think that's everybody so far that I can see on
and of course you could introduce yourself,
Priscilla Vargas. Thank you.
Okay, so now we will go to members of the public in the room. Do we have any members of the public? If we do, get them mic so they can. No, one. Okay.
Mary Lou Martinez.
Anyone on Zoom? Any members of the public? Maybe Priscilla, you can look and.
Yes, we do. Joseph.
My name is Robert Copeland, Doc 5 member, ACE member.
Okay, thank you.
Regina Brink, ACB Capital Chapter.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, this is Joe Wilson. I'm a system change advocate for resources for independent living.
Great, thank you.
Looks like
Bernard with Turning Point Community Programs.
Okay. And I think we have Michael. You want
Good afternoon, Michael Cormay, Director, Light Rail Maintenance.
to, all right. And I want to thank Tabitha for helping to circulate the mic. Appreciate that. And thank you for helping me get over here as well. Okay, so let us now go to our first item of business, which is the approval of the October 17th minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Helen O'Connell, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Or I second the motion.
Okay, so Helen moves, Pam seconds. Is there any discussion? Okay, I don't hear any. So all those in favor of approval of the minutes say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the motion carries.
Gene abstains.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, public comment on items not on the agenda, and we do have, we'll start in the room. So, Ms. Martinez, do you have any public comment? Okay. And we'll go to Zoom. Raise your hand if you have public comment on Zoom. Okay. We have a hand.
I am at the Zimperdale Light Rail Station, and there was a senior citizen using a walker, and she couldn't figure out how to get on the light rail train. So I think light rail is barely is very bad as disability people accessing it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the comment. All right, we will now go to the chair's report. Got a few things. First, at the January meeting, we will be doing a couple of internal things. We will all be selecting a committee, and we'll have some statements about what our two committees do. Everybody has to be on one of them. We have our Access and Infrastructure Committee, and we have our Training and Policy Committee. There's an initial that I skipped because I always get the C mixed up. And these two committees are currently chaired respectively by Jean Lozano and Helen O'Connell. And the second thing we will be doing after everybody selects which committee they want is that there will be an election for chair of those two committees. The officers, Charles and I, are not up. We have another year to serve, but the committee chairs there'll be new elections in January. So just letting you know, you'll learn about what the two committees do for those of you who are new members. The second thing I'd like to do is we do, and neither of them are on. Let's see, Melissa, you actually were at your first meeting last month, right? And when I introduced you.
No, this is my first meeting.
Okay, then.
The last couple, just as an observation.
Okay, so we have 3 new appointees, and 2 of them are Diane Olafson and Jacob Miller, and we'll let them introduce themselves at the next meeting. But we also have in the room Melissa Backrack. And Melissa, why don't you say a few words to everyone about who you are, and so we can learn a little bit about you.
Hello, my name is Melissa Backrack. I've been in Sacramento for 27 years or so. I've been using public transportation for pretty much that whole time. I use mostly the light rail, sometimes the bus, and paratransit as well. And that's what's made me interested in being part of this committee. I also worked for the Department of Rehab for 25 years.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm glad to have you aboard.
Thank you.
My final item on the chair's report, we are beginning to work on let me go back for Melissa's sake, at least. Every year we are required to adopt a work plan for the year, which goes to the RT Board of Directors. And we develop that work plan through a process that after we get the thoughts of folks, we come to it with a draft to the entire MAC, and then the MAC is able to look at that draft during the meeting and actually add or take away items that they feel should be changed, so that whatever goes to the board, it has to be approved by the entire MAC. So we are in the process of working on it. I have a committee that is composed of myself and Pam Fleur and Charles Johnson. And we're going to come up, and we've had some help from staff. Austin has been very helpful, and Priscilla. And so we're working on it, and we will present a plan, presumably. I'm not sure. We haven't finalized this, but I'm not sure whether we will have a December meeting or not. But we will come, hopefully to the no later than the January meeting, we will present a plan. And we've already, people that have thoughts, we're already integrating thoughts. So if you have other thoughts that you think items you would like to see on there, come to us ahead of time, we can integrate them. Otherwise, you'll have a chance to talk about it in January. Okay, so our first, any questions on that? Okay, thank you. First item of all business is the California Integrated Travel Project. And to talk to us about that is Casey Cartwright, Director of Office of Management and Budget. So Casey, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chair Tom, members of the MAC. Wonderful to have the opportunity to speak to you again today. We have some wonderful news that we thought we'd like to kick today's meeting off with. We continue to progress in terms of getting the Cal ITP Tap to Ride system available for our bus passengers, including SAC-RT Go. We've met with, we have a hardware provider. The company name is Kuba. We also have a back office payment processor on board. That company is LittlePay. Those two have worked together on other Cal ITP projects, so they are very familiar with each other, ensuring a smooth integration between the Kuba hardware and the LittlePay payment processor. We had the Kuba installation team on site in early November. They were here to determine the best locations for the tap devices on board each of our vehicle types. We actually had them come back out and resurvey the SAC-RT Go vehicles specifically a second time because of some concerns I had over the original location. So we had Helen O'Connell, we invited to come out and meet us on board one of the vehicles, and she brought a friend of hers as well. So we could go over some of the pros and cons of where the hardware would be located. I actually have a photo of the device and location that I'm going to pull up. Oh, and it says, Priscilla Austin, it says I have to send a request for sharing. So Austin, if you happen to have the photo and want to pull it up, or you can approve the share request, I can share myself.
You should be approved, Casey.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let's see here. So should be pulling up the image now of the tap device. Let's see. There it goes. So it's a small it's not a handheld device. It'll be affixed to a stanchion. Facing the front of the vehicle, it is behind the stairwell. It'll be attached to the railing that passengers use as handrails, but tucked off to the side so that it's not actually taking up any of the space of the handrails themselves. The device itself is yellow and black in color. It's about the size of a large cell phone. Half the screen is dedicated to directing passengers where to tap their credit or debit card. The other half of the screen is a visual display that will tell passengers that their fare has been accepted. The device also produces an audible tone, a positive type of tone for a fare that's accepted, and a negative buzzer style tone for a fare that may not be accepted. so in working with Helen, it was great to have her on board the vehicle with us. We walked through all the various possible locations. This is where we settled on what we think is the best possible position to make it the most accessible for as many passengers as possible on SAC RT Go. And so for passengers who board either from the rear of the vehicle or from the front stairs, will both be able to access the tap device itself. So we anticipate in the beginning of December, you'll begin to see the install team installing the brackets and hardware that the device will be mounted to. Likely in late December through January, we'll actually be installing the devices themselves, and we're targeting something in early 2025 to turn the system on. We're looking to prioritize the SAC RT Go fleet and ensure that at a minimum, the SAC RT Go fleet is launched in conjunction with our big bus fleet. But it is possible and likely, maybe even, that the SAC RT Go fleet may be the first set of vehicles that we turn on. So we're really excited about this. We think it'll provide a much simpler payment option for a lot of our passengers. The SAC RT Go fare structure is relatively simple in terms of this, with a flat single $5 fare. And so we think the passengers will really appreciate it. There'll be no need to carry cash on board with you on a SAC RT Go vehicle. And yeah, it'll be a very simple fare payment option. The same debit or credit card or Apple or Google Pay that you use to buy a cup of coffee or get your groceries, that same card can now be used directly on board the vehicle to make your fare payment. So very excited about it. Looking forward to launching it in earnest within the next couple of months is what we're targeting here.
So I'm going to ask the first question, and this won't happen very often, but it will happen. Let's, one of the potential RT Go fares would be a $10 fare, and that would occur when, let's say, I went on board with Frank, who is my PCA, and then I had a guest that I want to, I don't know, maybe my worst enemy was going to travel with me. So I would have a $10 fare. Would I then, the only way to do that is to pay in cash? Because I don't know how you would get I'm just throwing that out. Yeah, so the system is configurable to allow what we call passbacks. So we'll work with the MAC on what's most appropriate for SAC RT Go, what's most appropriate for fixed route bus. But essentially the way it works is when you tap your existing credit or debit card to the device, you'll be charged the first $5 yourself. A subsequent second tap may or may not charge you depending on how we configure the system. So in some cases, we want to avoid double charging people. So we'll set a threshold of a period of time, say 5 seconds, 10 seconds, something like that, to just ensure that you didn't accidentally tap twice. But it can certainly accept a second subsequent tap and charge another $5. It also would obviously accept a second debit or credit card. So if you happen to have two, you could pay with two different cards and avoid the passback issue altogether. But there's ways to configure the system around that to allow both transactions to happen. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, other questions from MAC members first in the room? Gene, go ahead.
Casey, I have questions about the actual physical device. Rather than operating, but the mounting location, the device, which I've not seen previously, so I apologize. Are all the edges and corners rounded? So there's no sharp edges, so that as you, I'm thinking as a totally blind person sweeping along, trying to find the device, you encounter it, and you want to make certain that your hand does not encounter a sharp edge. And as we get older, our skin often gets thinner, and it takes less to cause a cut or something in our skin if you're a senior. So I want to start with that first.
Yeah, absolutely no sharp edges on this, all rounded corners. All of the mounting hardware itself as well. So in the photo there to the left of the left of the device, there's a stanchion that passengers as they board the vehicle will grab onto as like a handhold type of deal to make the corner and turn back towards the seating area. Anything that connects to that stanchion will also have rounded edges on it and stuff like that, so that there's no exposed sharp corners or edges for sure.
Okay, now on the device for on a SAC-RT Go vehicle, it's going to be, do you have to, when you're wanting to use the device, do you have to, if it's to the right of the stanchion that you grab hold to go down, does this mean that you have to stand in the aisle of the first row of seats on the passenger side to operate it? And two, it's really important to know the mounting height for people with low vision needing something they can see that's not too high, not too low, depending on your that you're standing to operate this device. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course. And we'll start with the height second. The height will certainly meet any and all ADA required heights. There was an option, for example, to mount the device on the other side of the vehicle, but it would have been butting up against the maximum height, like really close to the maximum allowable height. And
60 inches you're talking about?
We went against the alternate location for that particular reason, was that we wanted to make sure that
54. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So we went with the current location primarily because it gives us a flexible range kind of directly in the middle of the standard, height zone for this type of hardware. The first question you asked about the location. So passengers who are walking or standing would likely be able to access the device directly from the middle of the vehicle without having to potentially disrupt the first row of seats on that passenger side that you were talking about. If passengers are in a chair, they will likely need that first row of seats potentially to be up, which my understanding is that first row of seats on the passenger side is kind of the last ones to be moved down and used as a seating location when I met with Helen. So that was part of the reason why we chose the right-hand side, was that it's most likely that the device would be most easily accessible for everyone having it on that side of the vehicle.
I'm sorry. I'm being, I thought I heard you just say that this device now will be in the middle of the vehicle, where at first I thought it was the hand stanchion right there as the stairs that you're going down in the front of the vehicle.
So it is to describe it for you in a little more detail. If you are standing in the middle of the bus, looking out the front window, and you have before you've made the turn to go down the stairs out the front of the vehicle, you have a hand railing on your left-hand side and a hand railing on your right-hand side. This is attached to the hand railing on the right-hand side, facing towards the back of the bus. So the passengers would be approaching the device if they were looking directly at it from the rear of the vehicle. Is where you would go to want to see the screen, for example. But it's only going to be probably offset from that stanchion by 2 or 3 inches. So it's not like it's tucked all the way against the right-hand side of the vehicle. It's more towards the center, but not certainly protruding into any walkway or anything like that.
Okay, so it is right there at the front
Correct.
of the vehicle, and you will have to stand in the aisle where the people might be sitting there if you have a full capacity vehicle to look at it. And how large are the characters' height and that are appearing on the display? And what is the color contrast? Is it light on dark, and
I have
what
to
colors?
I have to review. I haven't seen one powered up in a little while, to be honest, but I know that so these devices were all approved by the state of California for use across the state on a statewide master
Yeah.
service agreement. So we're purchasing off of that. So I'm, certain that they are adhering to any and all state guidelines in terms of character size and contrast and stuff like that. The example we have here, the device is not powered on. We don't have any power ran to it yet, but they absolutely will adhere to all guidelines for sure.
Okay. Having dealt with state on access requirements, I'm sorry, Kate's not overconfident, but we'll see. Okay, I'm finished, Jeff.
Okay, any other questions from folks in the room?
Yeah, this is Frank.
Frank, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to know is, I've been told several things, so I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
My blind members, we all use Zip Pass. Is that still going to be acceptable?
Zip Pass will continue to be accepted. We are in the process of procuring a new mobile app.
Okay.
It'll include, the same types of features as Zip Pass plus more beyond that. So
Okay.
the new mobile app will be in call it a Zip Pass 2.0, right? It's a Zip Pass Plus type of deal. There will certainly be a period where we allow transition for passengers from our current Zip Pass application to whatever the new mobile app may be called. That's still kind of in the final stages of procurement right now.
Okay, thank you. Also, I've also been told since I've been on this board for 5 years now, that we 100% are supposed to pay before we board the SAC-RT Go buses and also use their riders. So is that not going to happen now? Is that changing?
Well, similar to like paying with cash, right? You're paying upon boarding in this case. So yeah, it would be similar to someone who came on board to pay with cash.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Melissa.
Something's wrong with the mic.
Yeah, we can't hear her. I'm just learning to turn it on. Sorry, guys. I'm
We're getting feedback though. Echo. It's not you.
let me use
Somebody on
Yeah,
Zoom.
if you're on Zoom, you should probably mute unless you're going to be talking because we're getting feedback.
Can you turn yours off, please?
Go ahead, Melissa.
So I am in a wheelchair, and occasionally I'm on a bus with two people in a wheelchair. If somebody's in that front spot, is the person behind them going to be able to reach the device?
So on a fixed route bus, the device is actually going to be located near the wheelchair ramp when you board at the front of the bus.
I'm sorry, I was talking about the RT Go.
So on RT Go, if those spaces happen to be used, my understanding is that this is kind of the last space that is used. If the space happens to be unavailable and you're able to board the vehicle anyway, you could, in theory, ask for assistance from the other passenger. You could also have the operator assist you. It would be similar to right now, if you're paying with cash, when you board the vehicle, you've got to hand the cash to the operator and have the operator, trust that the operator is actually putting it in the bucket for you. It'd be very similar to that type of experience, I believe. But again, the goal of the existing location was that it's kind of the last potential spot that would be covered up on a vehicle, and unlikely in most circumstances to be unavailable.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, in the room, Zoom, members on Zoom. Pam, go ahead.
Yes, this is specifically responding to Jean's question about the color, since I had a problem with the yellow in the past. First thing I did when I saw this image was look at the yellow. It's great. It's a really good contrast, Jean. It's more toward the orange side of the yellow spectrum, and all of the background against it is gray. So there is quite a contrast. I don't think it will be an issue. I hope that helps, Jean.
Thank you, Pam. That's excellent description.
Okay, anyone else on Zoom? Helen?
Yes. I was wondering, I have a Connect card that's connected to the 60 pass, and I use it on the train and the bus. And I was wondering if that would be accepted or if I have to go to a debit or credit card for my transportation, and I don't see how that would work with my 60 pass.
Yeah, so this is an additional option to our existing fares. So nothing is being removed or taken away as a result of the tap to ride system being implemented. So the same 60 ride pass that you buy today and then utilize the fixed route connect card pass, that would still exist going into the future. And then as we transition, as I mentioned earlier, as we transition to a new fare system, an equivalent option would be made available, certainly, Helen, in those circumstances with the 60 ride pass and a connect card type of combo. That absolutely will not be going away.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other member questions? Okay, let's go ahead.
Really quickly, I have a couple of friends that are very old fashioned. They don't use electronic things at all for whatever reason. Would they're still going to be able to use cash? Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Not taking away any payment options that currently exist, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members of the public, let's start in Zoom this time.
We have one
Okay.
person with a phone number, and I don't know who the person is, the name, but his hand has been up for some time.
It's Margie.
Okay.
Oh,
go
hi,
ahead,
Margie.
Hi, I'm actually on a bus right now, and then I'll switch to the computer. I have some concerns about the location of this. I'm a guide dog handler. 99% of those of us that work guide dogs work them in our left hand. That would mean I would have to drop the harness of the dog while I'm boarding the bus and turn around to swipe my card. This really concerns me. Sometimes I get on the bus and people's feet are sticking out or their property sticking out. On Dial-A-Ride, I'm actually wishing there's a stanchion pole kind of behind the driver. I'm sitting in the front seat behind the driver. It's right in front of me. On Dial-A-Ride, that's where it was. And I think this might present an issue, especially for someone who has a 27-inch guide dog, as I do. So I'm concerned about that. I also want to know, and I'd be happy to work with you, Casey. I'm doing a little bit better, so I could meet with you. I want to know what happens when the technology doesn't work, and will drivers get training? I've been in a situation one time a couple years ago in the summer when I was trying to activate a zip pass, and a non-regular driver up here in Folsom refused, it was 100-something degrees, to allow me to board the bus or my dog to get him off the blacktop until I could get zip pass to work. And I walked over to the grass and told him he had to come over there. Anyway, that's a situation. I want to make sure if the technology doesn't work, what are the drivers trained to do? And are all the drivers going to be informed that we can board and pay on board, because some drivers still insist payment at the door?
Yeah. So thanks for
So that's three parts.
So thanks for the questions, Margie. The first to the location. So the right side was actually specifically used in part because of what you actually described. So we know that the seats directly behind the driver get used more frequently, and there were some concern around particularly an individual who may be visually impaired and having others approach near them to do payment acceptance, because the device would actually be directly in front of you where you're sitting there. So that was one of the reasons why the opposite side of the stairwell was chosen. And so that's kind of the first question. Second question, in terms of if the device is not functional, thankfully these devices are very simple. They're doing far less than what Connect Card devices or Zip Pass are doing. All that the hardware is doing when you tap the device is it's just confirming two things. One is the credit or debit card that Margie may be using in this case, is it a legitimate credit or debit card? Meaning, is it not a fake card? If it's a legitimate credit or debit card and it's not on what they call the deny list, the only way you get on the deny list is if you've presented the card for payment in the past and you had insufficient funds or payment was denied for one reason or another. Payment is not actually authorized at the time that you tap. So what the system does is that you tap and then it batches transactions for a period of a few minutes and sends all of them together to the bank at once. So your initial authentication is very simplistic. It is basically, if you present a real debit or credit card to the device, you're going to get the go ahead ding. In terms of the operator training, they're going to be trained to essentially listen for the positive ding or the negative buzzer. And they'll get one of the two responses. A negative buzzer means payment wasn't accepted for one reason or another. And that could be that your card is on the deny list. It could be that it wasn't a debit or credit card. It could be that you presented the card and moved it away too quickly, those types of issues. So the operators will be trained on how to handle that, but they won't need to be trained necessarily, Margie, on how to actually operate anything, like is the case with ZipPass, where it's more user interface stuff. This is just a you did it or you didn't type of thing, which I think will really help the passenger experience.
A follow-up, please.
Yes.
So technology goes down. I used Dial-A-Ride for many years before we went to SAC-RT Go. And I'm not a technological person. And it would go down on Dial-A-Ride. And what the train operators were trained to do is call dispatch, and we just had to let us ride free. Technology breaks. So that has to be addressed. And then as a follow-up on the location, I'm going to ask you, Casey, to seriously consider my concerns. On the Dial-A-Ride bus, it was placed on the stanchion pole I described, but was facing the side of the bus with the door. So as you boarded from the front of the bus, you walk right past it, it's on your right-hand side, and you can run your card. My final comment is I heard, and I'm gonna say never in an official capacity, suggest that anybody hands their credit cards or debit cards to a driver, to a passenger. Never. That's a liability issue. Thank you, AJ. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you, Margie.
Am I not going to get a response?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. What was can you go back to the actual question?
Oh,
we will consider look at the location one more time. We had some concerns about accessibility. If the device was mounted in a way that was facing the door, the front door, it becomes less accessible for those who have to board from the rear of the bus and maybe in a chair. But we can certainly look into that, Margie. And I may have missed if there was another question in there. I'm sorry.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know if there's any of the old Dial-A-Ride buses around, but from my experience, the way Dial-A-Ride had it set up, it worked well. That's what I'm going to say. And we were only using the Connect card. So at that point, wheelchair passengers using wheelchairs would hand their Connect card to the driver. I would never do that with the credit card and wouldn't recommend it. So I'm just very concerned about that. And like I say, if you want me to come out and meet with you after the holiday, I'm happy to do that. I want to end by saying I am so excited. We're finally resolving this issue. We know what a pain the ZipPass has been for many of us. Some can use it, some can't. But many of us who are totally blind have had serious problems. And I'm very excited that this would be one last stress off my plate when I ride. Thank you. I will now go on mute.
Okay, thank you, Margie.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Frank, did you have? Okay. Yes. Melissa, go ahead.
I can imagine that somebody's card might be low on funds at the end of the month. If a person were to get on this deny list or whatever it's called, how does one get off of it? And can it be handled over the radio?
We can always handle customer concerns over the radio. That would be outside of whether or not their card is on the deny list. So the way that this functions is the first time that you present any debit or credit card to the device, you're going to be given a green go ahead screen, right? It's going to tell you you're good. As your payment is either accepted or declined later on that day, if your payment is declined, it goes on to the deny list automatically. The deny list, what we do with that is each night, the system has an automated retry, I guess, of the charge. And if the charge successfully goes through, then you'll be removed from the deny list automatically. There's no intervention needed by the passenger at that point. Now, if they do happen to notice their card get declined, they can absolutely call our customer service team and we can walk them through that, and we can manually remove them from the deny list if payment is made in another way. But it will also automatically remove you from the deny list if the funds were collected at a later date.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So our next item of business, thank you very much, Casey, for that. Jeff, we really need to move on. I'm sorry, but well, we have a lot of items to cover, and we've already.
Before moving on, I Priscilla wanted to let you know our history writer item is being tabled.
Okay, well, we can do a couple more because we just lost an item. So I'll recognize Gene first and then Jeff Tardigia secondly.
Casey, this is just kind of a follow-up to Margie's recommendation of putting the device facing inwards into the vehicle, but as you're boarding, it's on your right. This device, I assume, projects off the stanchion less than 4 inches. Would that be correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So therefore it would fit in within the codes, and I think it does make sense there, and I think it still would meet the reach ranges for people who are using wheeled mobility devices to get there. So thank you for at least considering the idea and taking a look with it. That's it, Jeff.
Okay, Jeff.
Yes, because the Connect card has had so much graffiti, I'm assuming this card is within the camera range, and has this been determined to being robust enough that it's not going to break easily? Just a question.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So we should be able to visually see this on board the vehicle. We've had very little vandalism issues with Connect card on board our bus fleet, far more obviously at light rail being unmanned terminals. But yeah, this is it should be able to handle the bus traffic pretty well. And the location, I know you don't see it on fixed route bus here, Jeff, but the location on a fixed route bus is actually on the dash of the vehicle as you board on the right hand side. So it'll be right there near the operator. So again, very difficult to vandalize without being noticed for sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to our next item, which is a station improvement update. And I know I'm going to butcher your name. I'm terribly sorry. Equid Aqua is our first speaker, and Craig Norman is our other speaker. So, gentlemen, take it away. You're not on the mic, though, I don't think.
Can you all hear me now? Okay. Well, I am Henry Kutukwe. I'm the VP of Capital Program at SACRT. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present before you today on our progress on the light rail station modification projects. We are currently in phase 3 of the program, having completed phase 2, which we started on the goal line. I think we worked with Mark on that. I want to express my appreciation to MAC members for their collaboration and assistance as we work to complete the goal line upgrades and roll out the low floor trains, which again, we worked with you to put that into motion. Phase 1 was completed prior to starting the goal line at the low floor operations of the train. As I stated earlier, we are now in phase 3, which is to upgrade the following 4 Blue Line stations. Swanston, Roseville Road, Globe, and Alkali Flat, La Valentina. Swanston Station was completed. And if you look on the picture that we're presenting online now, you will see what it looks like before and after. So Swanston Station was completed in October. October 18 actually was when we completed that.
Excuse me,
we
Henry. Henry, this is Priscilla. Could you just try to describe more visually for folks that aren't able to see the slide?
Okay.
Thank you.
For those who cannot see this, we have raised the platform at the station. Before, it used to be a plaza, pretty much level. So now, as you come into the station, the platforms are now raised about 8 inches above the light rail track itself. So just like other stations that we have done on the GO line, this is similar to that. As I was saying, we completed the Swanston station October 18. And we have also completed work on the Roseville station earlier this month. So those 2 first stations are completed and open to traffic. But we're moving forward. Our next station will be Globe and then Alkali Flat. Those will start early next year, January. So from now through the holiday season, we will not be doing any more construction on the stations. Now, after we finish these 2 stations, we will then transition into phase 2. For those of you who have been keeping track, we're merging phase 2 and phase 4. And phase 2, the new phase 2 now will deal with upgrading the remaining blue stations and GO line to fill build out, meaning all the stations will now be able to handle 3-car consists. Right now, it's not every station that can handle 3-car consists. Some of them, we only have capacity to handle 2 cars. But we want to make sure that with this program, all our stations will be able to handle 3-car consists throughout the system. So that is what phase 2 will be doing. Now, as part of that, we currently doing the drawings. We engaging our consultants in drawing up what those stations will look like. Once we finish with the drawings, we will put them out to bid. Hopefully, the drawings will be done by early next summer, and we will put it out to bid. For reference, we will also be upgrading the Braille signs at all the stations so that everything will look upgraded even to our MAC members. We will be working collaboratively with MAC members as we go through all that. And once those Braille signs are available, we'll be making it available to MAC members to look at. I believe that is all I have. If you have any questions, I will take it at this point.
Okay, this time we'll start with members on Zoom. Any questions from Zoom, folks? Okay, how about members in the room? Frank, go right ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Frank. We've been told a few years ago during this meeting that you guys would start at Watt I-80. But I noticed you guys haven't, because I've also noticed Watt I-80 is number 1. Next one's called Watt, number 2. Third one's called Roseville. And so all I've seen recently is just fixing the parking lots. We were told when you start in Watt I-80, you would replace the steps first on the west and east side of Watt Avenue. When's that going to start?
Well, that's a different project.
Oh, why haven't we been updated then?
We actually have been updated on that. We'll continue. It's going to be on the work plan for next year as well. We had an update at the last meeting, I believe, as I recall.
Oh, so instead of starting at Watt I-80 and going down on the blue line, they started in what he just suggested, those are the 4 spots, huh?
Well, it's an entirely, they've got to do all sorts of things on that Watt and I-80 project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions in the room? Gene?
I don't know whether this is, you can address this or whether this would be the next presentation. There's been, the Society for the Blind submitted some concerns about some of the platforms. And I was wondering if we can reinforce the door indicators that there is only supposed to be one per boarding platform at this time until the whole system is completed. And that the existing door indicators that have been used for the legacy fleet are to be removed from the platforms. And I assume that where they had an issue, that it was just one of the stations they hadn't yet removed them. But can you touch upon that, sir?
Definitely. When we started the program, the goal, of course, is to have only low floor trains operating, and I'll speak specifically about the goal line, where we have the low floor trains. But right now we're operating a mixed fleet, meaning we have legacy fleet and low floor trains. In order to prevent people, those visually challenged, from making the mistake of stepping in the wrong place, the decision was made, I believe, with MAC, to have only one door indicator tile for the low floor train. So that way, if a low floor train is coming, you know where to stand to take it. Now, if you are going with a legacy floor train, you will have to go to the mini high ramp for assistance and to get onto the train there. Now, this is temporary, completely temporary. We plan to remove all the old tiles. And once we begin to run fully low floor trains, we will put the door indicator tiles at those other two doors for the full train, so that you can enter any of the doors. You can use any of those doors. Now, we only use 2 because we want to put you where you can also have the ramp come out, because it's not everybody who is visually challenged who can step up, no matter how little it is. So we want to make sure that those door indicator tiles align with where you have a ramp. So it will be 2 of them for the 2, I think 4 of them for each, for the first car. So you will be able to move, we'll be able to add those.
Okay.
It's only temporary now that we have only one. Once we begin to have full low floor train, we will put the additional door indicator tiles.
But just for clarifications, while we're in the interim period, so to avoid any confusion, I believe the MAC was told that the old door indicators were going to be removed, and so that people wouldn't get confused standing there at one of them. They would just go to the mini platforms. So I think you're confirming that, yes, they are going to be removed if they are still there, but they'll be removed. That kind of comes, there's just 2 other things. And I might have missed it while listening to the the video of the October 17th meeting, and I did not find it in the meeting minutes. But when there's the stations that you're blocking off the approach to the mini high platforms when there's just the gold line where the legacy ones, and that when the high floor legacy ones are in operation, then that ramp, mini high platform ramp, will be usable. And what I'm trying to get at is we came up with a temporary solution of something like a chain with A-frames hanging off to it to block it. But there was supposed to be something permanent that would be there for at least another 10 years that would have braille signage on it and audible signage to tell you whether that the platform is, that approach to the mini high platform is closed off and you cannot use it and go to the low floor platforms. I just would like to hear what the update is on that. We agreed to a temporary solution for about 2 months.
Yes, yes, Gene, you're correct. We initially, again, thought that we're going to have a full low floor rollout on the goal line. With that, we didn't want people going to the mini high and being confused by the mini high being there. So the original plan was to block off that entryway into the mini high, so everybody will just be on the platform and use the low floor train. That didn't happen because we didn't have a full slate of low floor trains. Since we are operating mixed fleet at this point,
okay,
the mini high is still useful. If you're going to go on the legacy fleet, you will still need to use the mini high. So we haven't moved there yet. Once we roll out the full low floor train on the goal line, and we are assured that we will never use the mini high, and that's a long order, it's a tall order at this point. We have to be assured that we will never go back to using the legacy fleet on that line before we will seal off the mini high completely. And just like you said, how we seal that off until we demolish, because the plan will be to demolish the mini highs once we are no longer using them. So the interim period between when we seal it off and when we demolish it is when what you're talking about now will come into play. We will make sure that we seal it off and people who are visually impaired will not mistakenly go onto the mini high. And we will have braille signs, as we discussed, to help guide people.
Okay, great. And the last is just a request. And that is, and it would be part of the work plan for the access and infrastructure. I'd like to see that this work that is being done in designing some of the future blue stations that will go out for bid next year, that there's an opportunity for us to meet with staff and go over it in depth, review it, because each station, yes, they have some similarities, but yet there's still some differences that are unique to it. And that's something where, from the access perspective, we really would like to have the input rather than so access is more built into the design than afterwards going back and trying to retrofit it. Just because I don't know, this new station just that you folks just started constructing, got funding. I was totally caught off guard and just got the media. I didn't realize that that was being done, because the last time we heard about a station was one that was going to be on North 7th near Richards Boulevard. And this is, seems like off 12th North. So that's a station that you're going to be working for the next 2 years, and we haven't even seen the designs, knowing how it's going to work for people with different disabilities, particularly the blind, trying to negotiate getting around in the station. So I asked for these, that now you're meeting with your consultants, that you meet with the A&I committee and get some recommendations that can be brought to this full MAC. So thank you.
We definitely will do. I'm thinking you're talking about the Dos Rios that is under construction. Is that
Yeah, it
the
was
one
on
that
the-
12th and Richards?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
they
right.
just started
Yeah.
this Monday.
We will come make a presentation to the infrastructure committee as we go through this process.
So Gene, I'm off. Am I on? Yeah. Gene, I also want to respond and to some degree. I am already in the current draft put in the rail yard station, and I will also make sure before we have our subcommittee meeting that I peruse it to make sure that there's sufficient language in there so that we continue to monitor the light rail station modifications. So if it isn't in there, we'll try to get it in there before you see it.
Okay, and it just occurred to me, I'd like to see that when part of the bid package for the next year's projects, when they go out the construction, that there is that the company has to respond in providing accessible design drawings, whether my three-dimensional models, whatever it might be, so that whatever they come up with, proposal made of styrofoam, whatever, that we can have a tactile version of it and provide input. And that's something that a former staff person, David Solomon, used to do that, try to find the money to do that. And he said, that's the thing that needs to be in line items when we go out, that the bidders tell us how they're going to put together replicas of their proposed designs that can be usable by people with vision disabilities. So I'd like to see that could be put into your RFP, that they have to address that. So thank you.
Hey, thank you, Gene.
We'll take that
Are
into
there
consideration.
other questions in the room?
I have a question. This goes for the new stations and the old stations. I have been taking the low floor trains, and I'm in a wheelchair, and I can't see the station signage if I'm in the low floor trains. Is there plans for them to have signage, the signage move, so I'll be able to see it?
We do not currently have that in our program, but that's a complaint that you just brought to my attention now. So when you are in the train, you are unable to see the station signs.
That's true. I can see the signs that are inside the train that say this is whatever station, but this outside,
The outside signs, you
I
cannot
can't see those. Yes.
Okay, that you just brought that to my attention. We will follow up on that. We'll follow up on that.
I think it's because the trains are lower.
Yeah, definitely. They're
Anyway,
lower,
that's all.
and your line of sight is different from the high floor trains. We will follow up on that.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Anyone else in the room? No, not yet, Jeff. Not yet. Okay. Now we'll go to Zoom members of the public. No hands, so Jeff, you got it.
Well, I'm going to start off first with the Swanson you showed me. Where is the cutouts? On the gold line, you said at the end of the station. Obviously, at Swanson, it cannot be at the end of the station that you have your 8-inch cutouts to get you from one side to the other. So how does that happen? And the one that you showed for the Roseville Road, your one picture showed one side that had no trees in it. The other side picture showed trees in it. So I'm a little perplexed and confused in how a wheelchair gets on and off for both of those stations. Your next thing after that, you're going to do the Globe station, which is an entirely different configuration. You've used brackets to go up and down and everything else on the gold line. Right now, you have used nothing, it just all concrete through there. And please bring back to the MAC the Arden Fair one, because I'm very concerned that you're going to have problems with the Arden Fair and the Arden Del Paso location. But I'm sorry, it's Arden Del Paso location, because the way that's situated and with the construction going on there currently right now with the 2 years of how that is going to be impacted. Is that enough questions for you?
If you get a test, if you can
Yeah,
follow all that, then you really pass it.
You just giving me tasks to go do. So I will make sure that I line that up. Okay, I will follow up with you after now.
See, if you look at the Swanson station, it's straight across the building, but the Roseville station, you got trees on one picture facing one way and the other. So how does a wheelchair gain or get access parking lot to side?
I will definitely follow up with you on those.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else in the room? No hands. All right, so we will get some answers to some of the questions that were raised by Jeff, and we can certainly circulate those answers, or you can give them to us at the next meeting. We can do either way.
Yeah, before I leave, though, I just want to appeal to MAC members. As we do this construction, I will still continue to appeal to everybody who uses the stations to be mindful because the conditions have changed. We don't want people tripping off the raised platforms. So when you are around these stations, please be very careful, watch where you go, watch your steps. It's important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's absolutely excellent. A reminder. Okay, we're now on item C, which is the S700 post-launch update. We have a cast of thousands here. Well, maybe not thousands, but we have Anthony DeCristofano, we have Vincent Beatty, and we have Michael Corney. So whoever is going, go ahead, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Suspect number one here. Good afternoon, everybody. The current update with the S700s, we have the CPUC has blessed 2 more trains for us, so they have certified those for use. That brings our total up to 18 cars, which is a fantastic endeavor. We're so very pleased that we've hit that mark. We also had a delivery in November of a brand new train that arrived. We're currently taking the bubble wrap off of that one. And it looks like the next train should be delivered sometime in December. And we're hopeful for that. So weather providing and all that good stuff. So we're moving right along. Some of the stuff that we are continuing to work on with Siemens is number one, the slight absence of some announcements along the gold line for the S700. We have seen areas where some announcements don't work for some reason. We are actively working with Siemens and other of their contractors to try to figure that out and try to rectify that. We are also still working with Siemens on the ramp extension tone, and we're still actively trying to resolve that to make it user-friendly for everybody. And lastly, we're still working on the tape switch item where it's a usable switch. We're working with Siemens and our partners to try to make that more user-friendly and can provide a function that's available to everybody. So we're not straying from that. We're still moving forward. No real updates other than we are working with our partners diligently to try to rectify those. That's the S700 update. Any questions?
I'm sure there will be. Let's start on Zoom. Members, MAC members on Zoom, any questions?
This is Helen O'Connell.
Go ahead, Helen.
Hi. I am glad to hear that you are addressing the cost strip that's under the grab bar on the seat. I also have concerns with the reachability of the buttons, just in case we can't reach the call strip. I have a lot of friends that have range of motion issues. They cannot lean forward to hit the button that's on the door. And they can also not reach over to the side to reach the button that's on the stanchion. So it is highly important that the call strip is more accessible. So I'm very happy that you are trying to figure out how to make it more accessible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Anyone else on Zoom? All right, in the room. Oh, wait a minute. No, we'll take the guests after we take MAC members. So in the room, MAC members first. Melissa, go ahead.
Melissa, I wanted to do a follow-up to kind of what Helen was saying, and that is that a few months ago when I first got involved with this train, I recommended that because some of us, I'm one of them, can't really reach the buttons when we're on the outside of the train going in. You have to be really close to the door to be able to reach the button. And I can do it, but it's complicated and difficult. So I usually have to ask people. At one point, there was a suggestion made that the driver automatically release the ramps when the train stopped, and I didn't hear any follow-up to that. I really recommend that. And then the other thing was just kind of the same thing I said to the other gentleman. When I'm on the low floor trains, I can't see the station signage on the outside. I'm not talking about the ones inside the train, I'm talking about outside the train.
Okay, Michael or anyone else? Well, hang on, Gene. Is there any response to what Melissa has?
Melissa, thank you. I've taken notes, and Vince Beatty, who's not here today, but he did establish and communicated with the operators that, you know, if it looks feasible to open the doors, if an operator witnesses, you know, a patron that needs access. So I think that is still there and available for the operators to perform that function, is the way I understood it last time we had chat. So, but I made a note, I'll reach out to Vince to clarify. It would be better suited if the operator had noticed, okay, instead of forcing the doors open each time, simply put, it's less stress on the environment of the train, you know, heating and air conditioning, because they would open every door, and you know how that works. So that was the approach that Vince had delivered, and I still do believe that to be the fact.
So
Melissa,
let me clarify things, and I tend to get confused on all this, but was my impression, and maybe this is just from inside the train, but it was my impression that it was not necessarily likely that the driver would notice someone, say in a wheelchair, who was outside the train. Is that an incorrect assumption?
I think that question would be better suited for Vince, but I've seen operators form that function when they have seen a patron outside. They, you know, they see that, they notice it. You know, it depends on what's happening in the cab. I would assume that there could be some other elements going on, a lot of other things happening, but maybe we'll get Vince to weigh in on that particular item. But that was my understanding.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, let's go to, I'm sorry. I think I heard Gene first, and then we'll go to Frank.
Michael, I don't know whether, now I'm thinking this through, whether you could respond to this or not. There was a complaint, and I have to concur with, from the Society for the Blind, about announcements being made in the interior of the train to have those same kind of announcements that when you're approaching the station and then when you arrive at the station, internal ones I'm talking about that the legacies have, and seeing if we can get that same setup for the trains. That's the first question. Is that something that is possible?
I do believe we are looking at that, Gene. We've heard similar traffic in regards to that, and we're taking notes to see what can be accomplished. The announcement system is it's quite a uphill challenge, so we're working through to try to get it to where it needs to be, and then once we arrive to that spot, then we can make adjustments to make it better work to fit our needs. But I have heard that statement, Gene, that there's patrons that wish they heard, trains in advance. It's, you're approaching the advanced station. That way patrons can be better prepared. So we have heard that, and we're looking at that, sir.
Okay. And I think possibly the other question I have, and that the last presentation might have been the appropriate time, but there's also the issue of hearing announcements on the platform as a train is coming in, and that there's more than just a few seconds advance notice the train is coming in and what kind of train. I know that we saw a written response that extending that time period, it can be done at some stations, other stations, because of close vicinity with others lines. It could be confusing, though, when you go to BART and other places. You do hear many announcements that identify where you are and that what type of train, so that if you're on the gold line versus the blue line, there shouldn't be confusion. So who's the person that we would address that those announcements be made more in advance so that you have time to move from one type of platform to another one? Who would be on staff responsible for that?
Gene, I'll take notes on that one. That would be our IT department, Information Technologies. They have programmed the advanced station announcements at the physical stations to announce if it's a low floor or high floor vehicle or legacy fleet, right? And I do see how there'd be a concern if the station is shorter because they are wrapped around travel time and things like that. There might be some fine tuning that could be done, Gene. So I'll make note of that and talk to some IT folks about that, sir.
Okay, and then it might help you get more specifics that if you have not already had it shared with you, the correspondence from Society for the Blind that they brought a list of issues, and that was one of them. Thank you.
Can I just interject? This is Priscilla.
Sure.
The information that you're sharing, Gene, and the information that Socrates responded to from Society of the Blind, everyone, I believe that's in the building, in the meeting right now, is aware of that information. And also IT was definitely pulled in to help respond to those questions and those
Right, they were.
potential solutions. So just so you know, there's definitely an effort underway for some of what you're mentioning, and folks are aware of the requests as well firsthand.
And Priscilla, I don't doubt that. I believe that people are looking at it. I just wanted to put it in on the record and also see if maybe since the response, maybe there was some kind of update. That was it. I am in no way believing or have the belief that it's being ignored, these concerns. The opposite. I think everyone is really engaged to try to address all the issues, whether they can or can't. Some of it's just out of their controls, just the way it works. So that's it.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Gene. Any other MAC members that haven't been called on? Frank, I'm sorry. I almost neglected you.
Thank you, Jeff. I just, I haven't heard this in a while, and some of my blind members also live in Folsom. When is the light rails, low floor light rails going to start getting out to Folsom?
Like
They haven't been updated.
Jeff enunciated, we're shooting for December. Sometime in December is where the vision lies still. Of course, this is work that's being performed diligently by contractor. So as you know, those times are fluctuating a little bit back and forth. But that's the time frame they're shooting for. And right now, the DART hits sometime in December.
Okay.
But flexibility is appreciated during the holiday season and wet weather. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay, members of the public, first we'll go to Zoom. No hands, we'll go to the room. Oh, go ahead.
There we go. This is Jeff. Thank you for 29th Street of updating, because there are times that you do not make the low floor announcement on there, especially at 12 noon that hour. It seems to be that somebody forgets to announce a low floor is coming or a legacy is coming. 65th Street, being the short distance that it has, you've been doing a very good job at that one. Question I have is do the operators have the ability to see what's inside the train, knowing what they're looking at outside of the train, what's going on? I asked that question because it's a fully loaded train. The ramp takes more than a minute to deploy. So getting people out versus people getting in. And if it's a full train, you might want to get people out first. That's comment more through there to the effect of. Got some others, but the other one is are these signs going to go up top, not being blocked behind the on the low floor fleet, behind the seating for accessible seating? Also, the accessible seating on one side is far tougher than the other side of closing up. I've taken it with where one side I can use one hand to do it, the other side I have to use two hands. Charles has made the best suggestion, is asking for help. It works the best through there. And getting on the vehicle is I swing around on the side so I can hit the button, get out of the way of the ramp deploying. But just like today, when I went on there, the operator had not yet released anything. So it was stuck there waiting for the release and seeing the buttons. And there's no sound outside yet to give you a clue that it's ready for you can deploy. That's my comments.
Okay, Michael, you have a test too coming up.
Certainly. I'm out of ink. Thank you very much. Jeff, I took notes. I'm going to ask Vince on some of those questions too. Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other members of the public in Zoom or the room? All right. We will thank you very much, Michael, for that update, and we will follow up at our next meeting with some of these outstanding questions.
Thank you.
Okay, our item D, of course, as you heard from Priscilla earlier on the Mystery Rider program is tabled. We'll certainly try to make sure we can get it for our next meeting. Item E, under old business, SAC-RT Flex update, Anthony Adams and James Drake. So, gentlemen.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'll be covering this item, and I'm going to share screen. If I can get that working here. Okay, one moment. Okay. Yeah, thank you, everyone. James Drake, SAC-RT Service Planning. And jump in if you guys aren't hearing me. Otherwise, I'll assume you guys are hearing me okay. Here to provide a little update on SAC-RT Flex. You'll probably note, and if you're following along my slides, you'll see on the slides, but I'll just say for the record, this is all kind of subject to change. It's obviously a new service we're starting up. So we're getting closer and closer to the final rules and parameters. But we're here as always and in our public engagement to float these things and get some feedback. I think everyone here is familiar with basics of SAC-RT Flex. It's the new microtransit service that will be replacing SmartRide. A lot of it's the same. Some of it will be a little different. Today we'll get into some of those details on what will be different. You've also heard it before, but for the record, I'll say, why are we doing this? This is for sure a cost reduction measure. SmartRide today costs $8.4 million. We looked at an option that would have been $700,000 a year to give vouchers out on Uber. There were a lot of concerns about the cost, the out-of-pocket cost, accessibility. So we've brought this back at $1.5 million, and this compared to the voucher program, it doesn't save as much money, but it still saves a lot of money. We think it's a real nice compromise. But yeah, we're not doing this because we want to. We're doing this because we are facing some budget difficulties for sure. So we're trying to be fiscally responsible and going after some of our service that's not as cost effective. To take a look at the calendar, on Monday, December 2nd, that's when we'd like to open registration, basically open the online application process for users. The new app for riding SAC-RT Flex is expected to be available no later than Thursday, December 12th. And we're looking at doing one final public webinar on December 12th to help people with the application process for SAC-RT Flex and to walk people through the process of downloading the app. Of course, you will be able to use this by phoning in, but we definitely encourage people to use the app. We'll have a soft launch on Tuesday, December 17th. We'll be open for service at about half service levels. The last day of SmartRide will be Tuesday, December 31st. And Thursday, January 2nd will be the first day of the full launch of SAC-RT Flex, which is an 18-month pilot scheduled and funded and approved through June 30th, 2026. We've gone through a lot of the basic parameters and a lot of the ways in which SAC-RT Flex would be different than SmartRide. One minor thing to add here, which I suspect will be well received, is that we are expecting to make this a curb-to-curb service rather than the corner-to-corner that's typical for SmartRide these days. And that's mostly a consequence of it being, at least initially, a book in advance service rather than an on-demand service. We do eventually want to get back to on-demand, but initially it'll be just book in advance. And we and our contractors believe that will work better initially as curb-to-curb. If you're looking at my screen, I have a visualization of what the vehicle will look like. I'll describe it. It's a standard Toyota Sienna passenger van wrapped in blue and black with the SAC-RT Flex logo and branding on the side. I've also shown a stock image of one of these vans with a rear entry lift. No change to the vehicle type, but we're happy to get some first looks at some mock-ups for the exterior styling. We have been getting some questions recently about the rear entry or rear access for wheelchairs rather than the side access. I'm going to attempt to answer as many of those questions today as possible. I don't know if I can answer them all. Certainly here at SAC-RT, we're pretty accustomed to side entry for wheelchairs, but rear entry is not at all out of the norm. For this service, we think it will be a better way to do it, and we believe it's a little more common for a service of this nature, specifically with the smaller format vehicles, with the vans. There definitely are some trade-offs, but some of the strengths of the rear entry is a separate entrance to the vehicle for wheelchairs from ambulatory passengers. In a small vehicle like this, we believe that'll just lead to less congestion and problems, and people in the way of one another, a little more room overall. We do have reports of some properties, I believe in West Sacramento, they use side entry largely as a consequence of the fuel type. They have hybrid vans, and they do have some problems with space and interior circulation. So for the, at least for this initial period, we're going with the rear entry. I think some trade-offs too with loading and unloading and finding locations. But we do believe those will kind of be cases of pros and cons, and then on the balance, we think the loading and unloading situation may also be easier for these types of vehicles with the rear entry. As you all know, customers will have to apply in advance and register for this service. It's a major cost reduction program. There's going to be about half as many vehicle hours out on the street. So it's being restricted to seniors, disabled, low-income people, and the dependent children of low-income people. If you are, how do you qualify to ride under low income? If you're a recipient of SNAP or food stamps, of TANF, of Medicaid or Medi-Cal, or general assistance, you'll be eligible to ride, and you'll provide just an example of your eligibility letter, SAC-RT, or your DHA pass in the case of general assistance. If you have a child age 13 to 17, they are allowed to ride alone if they have a parent or legal guardian who's already registered and enrolled as low income. A little bit more on children in a couple slides. For disabled, the easiest way to enroll if you're disabled is if you're already certified for SAC-RT Go. That is totally sufficient evidence of disability. So when you go to apply, you'll just check with single box saying that you're a Go customer. We'll have your contact info, your name, and we'll have both your email and your phone. We'll go into our system and see that you're in Go, and you'll be approved for SAC-RT Flex. If you're not a Go rider, but you are disabled, you can furnish a picture of your photo ID, your SAC-RT issued disabled pass, or of a disabled placard from DMV. For companions, we are planning to allow one companion for each adult who pays to ride. The companion themselves does not have to be eligible or registered. Just the person booking the ride has to be eligible and registered. This could be a PCA, but it could just be anyone. There's no restriction. It's one friend or family who can come along with you. They do all have to pay a fare. Space is limited in these vans. It's a lower cost service, so there's 3 seats plus 1 wheelchair space. Now for children, the situation's different. Children aged 13 to 17 who register and get their own accounts and are allowed to ride alone as children of low income persons, they ride essentially as adults, and they each have to pay a fare, and they're each entitled to 1 companion. But children riding with an adult are treated differently. An adult who wants to bring children has no restriction on the number of children they can bring other than the capacity of the vehicle, and doesn't have to pay for those children. We basically wanted to say, if you're a parent, we're not going to say to a parent, look, you can only bring 1 of your 2 children. As long as there's space in the vehicle, you can bring as many of them as you want. You don't have to pay if you're bringing your child around to run errands. Coming back to minors or youth, as I mentioned, if you're 13 to 17, you can ride alone, but you do have to pay that $2.50 fare. Service animals, also no charge for service animals. We do plan to have service animals count toward 1 seat in the vehicle, and that's again just with a smaller vehicle to make sure there's reasonable space for comfort of both the service animal and other riders in the vehicle. A little more on reservations. I think I mentioned before, initially this will be a book in advance service only. That's a change from Smart Ride. In theory, I think we'd actually like for this to be a same-day on-demand service, but with the level of service being reduced, we were just a little afraid there'd be too many denials. We might be leaving people stranded. So we wanted to give people that certainty of a return trip, a certainty of getting their trip in the first place. even if the answer is no, we want to give them that certainty in advance. But for booking a trip, customer will be able to request either a one-way or a round trip. They can submit a request up to 2 days before and up until 7 p.m. The day before service. If there's an available space within 60 minutes before or after the time of their request, then the customer will be presented with a 30-minute window to accept or decline. If that customer accepts that 30-minute window, then the night before service, they'll get a confirmation notice at 8 p.m. with that window. And then they'll get a reminder 30 minutes before their time, 5 minutes before, and upon arrival of the vehicle. Still to be determined on late cancellation and no-show policies, but something we've thought about. If you, for instance, if you've made the first leg of a round trip and your plans change, you need to alter your plans, you can call in or go into the app and attempt to edit your plans. And it's treated basically like a new request, except that it's made the same day. So if there's capacity, your itinerary will change. If there's not, then you'll have to probably either try to adjust your own schedule or you'll have to cancel. So we certainly would encourage people to try to do that as early as possible. On my screen, I've shown some screenshots of kind of a mock-up of our application screen. And this kind of brings me to my my conclusion here. I want to close with kind of a call to action here. We need volunteers. As I mentioned, we want to open the application process December 2nd, which for the Thanksgiving holiday, that's coming right up. The main way people will apply will be online through the web. And we've engaged Exemplify, our web vendor, to create a page for us, a front end where people will apply. Right now, we have kind of an unofficial prototype. We've just used a simple, cheap approach, which is working up a questionnaire in Google Forms. And that's allowed us to have a quick and easy way to design a layout and a flow and wording and terminology. And we are very much right now looking for testers. One condition of this is, in order to use a Google form like this and upload a photo or an image, you do have to have a Google account. So if you have Gmail and use that, you're good to go. If not, you really can't be one of our testers. But once the official version is up, you're good to go. But if you're willing to work with us, we'd love to have some additional testers. We will send you a link. You'll go to a web page, fill in your customer information, what form of eligibility you have, whether it's SAC-RT Go rider, senior, disabled, or low income. Additional parameters or preferences for riding, such as if you'd prefer to be notified by SMS text or a phone call, a little demographic information for RT. When you hit submit, we'll get a notice and we'll see that data on our end, and we'll be able to look at it, review it, and determine whether or not you're eligible, send you a letter letting you know you're eligible. So all these processes are being worked out right now, and any testers we can get who are willing to go, it really helps to get real world information. We've already gotten some participation. I'd like to thank Chair Tom first and foremost for stepping through the process with us, and it's already given us some tremendous valuable input, particularly on the need to handle screen readers. So the way to get in touch with me is just email. It's my first initial J as in James, and then my last name Drake, D-R-A-K-E, at sacrt.com. And thank you once again for your support, and you guys always have good questions. It really helps. Happy to take any questions now.
Okay, so we do have one other item, but I know there'll be questions. So what I'm going to do, we'll have 15 minutes for questions, and we'll go one question per person. And if there's time, you can go extra. So be concise with your question if you can. All right, let's go members on Zoom. Any questions, members on Zoom? Helen, go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead, Helen.
Hi. I have a question about the rear entry of the van. RT MAC board's members did evaluate other rear entry vans, and our determination, to the best of my recollection was that it would not be a safe form of entry, because you would have to get someone that's on the sidewalk down to an a down ramp to the street, and then escort them to the ramp, and it would be in a lane. Therefore, it would be feasible that a vehicle could come up behind an electric wheelchair, a manual wheelchair, a walker, accessible things. And I just wonder if that situation was looked into before we signed up for this service. It should have been put in the archives. I'm not sure if it was 1 or 2 years ago, but that is my main concern. Thank you.
Sure thing. Thanks, Helen. Yeah, I mean, I think a better response would probably be from our contractor. They have more experience with this, but yeah, the case of someone going from a city sidewalk level, having to find a ramp down to street level is probably one of the more challenging cases. But I think it's also traded off with a lot of cases, particularly more in our suburban and rural areas, where it may be easier to find a place to line up and board a customer at street or driveway level with the rear entry vehicle. But it's a question I'll refer to our contractors for a follow-up. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other Zoom members on Zoom? Okay, members in the room. Jean? Okay, go ahead.
I have an operational question. I believe I understand that the full capacity of the vehicle would be one person who uses the wheel device and 3 ambulatory individuals. And that the plan is that if somebody's coming with a service animal, that the animal would take the place of another rider, so that there would only be 2 riders and a service animal. That's the foundation of my question is, are you going to have a similar arrangement for people who have walkers, or have a cart or something with them, since it's not just the disabled, but other people of other, like seniors and so forth? So, folding up a walker, it's still going to take space. And so is that going to be trigger off having a seat reserved for the placement of the walker or any other wheel device that they have, like a cart? Thank you.
Gene, I'm not sure definitively. I mean, we will ask in our questionnaire if you use any mobility devices such as a walker or a cane, and it may depend a little on the size. There are capability for us to make notes, but yeah, I'm sure we'll want everyone to get equal treatment. I'll have to check on the definitive policy on that.
Because a walker will take some space, and it may not fit in the aisle or the space right in front of the person either. So that's the reason I brought it up. Thank you.
Okay, any other MAC member questions? Frank, go ahead.
A couple of weeks ago, Jeff, I was on the meeting and that was on Wednesday night from 5 to 6:30 PM. And you announced that there's not going to be enough vehicles like there is with Smart Ride. Is that still the case? I heard you say that there's 4 or 5, sometimes 6 in the 9 areas that Smart Ride uses. But since it's going to be SAC-RT Flex now, there's only going to be a total of 11. Is that still the same?
The fleet will be 11. We'll typically have 9 vehicles in service throughout the day, and there's 9 zones. So there'll typically be 1 van available in each zone throughout the day. And to be sure, that's less service than there is today, but that's precisely why it's being restricted to certain populations. I mean, to put it numerically, today we carry about 700 people per day, and we're reducing vehicle hours about 50%. So we expect to be able to carry about half that, about 350, actually maybe up to close to like 380 people a day. On the
Okay, so thank you about that. Can I ask one more question?
Well, let's see if there's anyone who has not asked a question. Melissa, you haven't asked a question. Do you have one? No? Okay, go ahead, Frank.
So, and the other thing is, I've been using quite a few of my blind members are also using ZipPass. You also announced we can no longer use that. Can you tell us why? Because when we use Smart Ride now, our ZipPass, we use $1.25 ZipPass and it lasts an hour and 30 minutes. So sometimes I'm able to give 2 rides and still use that ZipPass. Why are we not going to be able to use our ZipPass anymore?
I think there's kind of 2 questions there. I'll take the second one first, which is the pricing itself is being changed. You know, right now the fare on Smart Ride is the same as fixed route. You can use passes, and if you're paying the one-way fare, if you're discount eligible, senior disabled, you can pay the $1.25 rate. We're discontinuing passes altogether on this service, and we're making the fare essentially a premium fare. Although, you know, this isn't like some $7 or $8 thing. The fare will be $2.50 just across the board for everyone who is eligible. And there's a couple of best practices there. Allowing passes, you know, or discontinuing passes, we think will kind of help spread the service around a little more, so it's not necessarily monopolized by kind of super users. And then pricing the fare, we wanted to get some differentiation in pricing. I mean, we know people are sensitive to price, but we wanted to differentiate it from fixed route because, you know, on fixed route, we have capacity. With a 40-foot bus, we typically have capacity. So we actually want for there to be a financial incentive when someone has the option to take fixed route for them to do so. If it's a little more affordable, we want them to do that, because that frees up a seat on SAC-RT Flex for someone who needs it, who can't make a trip without it. As to why no ZipPass, you know, with the pricing just being a uniform $2.50, it's perfectly simple for our operator to take a credit or debit card, either form of payment, right in the app where you book your ride. The other main type of fare we want to take is cash, and they will take cash. But between those 2 options, we think that mostly covers it. To do ZipPass is an additional training, and there's kind of accounting concerns. How do we keep track of how many are counted? How do we audit that? Make sure there's not falsification of, you know, letting somebody on, oh, they just use ZipPass, when maybe they really should have collected a cash fare. So this just gives us a little more simplicity on the fare collection and fewer opportunities for fraud or shrinkage of the revenue.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right.
Sure thing.
Questions from the public in the room, and only one question. Jeff does. Okay. So nobody in the room, but we do have Margie on Zoom. So go ahead, Margie.
Hey, James, thank you for that wonderful presentation. I'm very excited about this, and there's several seniors in Folsom very excited. I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the accessibility to apply for it. I know you're testing it. you follow WCAG standards, it would be accessible. I'm concerned about the accessibility of my letter. Priscilla has done her best to get me the Braille agenda packet for today early. We're in the midst of a meeting and it's not at my house. So I'm very concerned about being notified that I will be eligible. Now, I know I'll be eligible, but since I have to get a letter of notification, I'm concerned.
Understood, Margie. I think getting everyone enrolled and registered is, at this point, one of the last big hurdles. We've got our contract with our service provider, everything but signed. They've been working in advance of the contract. We've got space lined up for them. We've got our grant funds locked in, but there still is a lot to do on this. Those accessibility concerns are front of our mind, but we're going to make this happen. We're going to get everybody on here who needs to be on here. And I think that's partly why we're doing a soft launch period. January 2nd is not the best time to launch a new service, but again, we've got some, fiscal challenges here we got to deal with. But that's partly why we're doing a demo period and a soft launch period, is to have a little overlap there between SmartRide and SAC-RT Flex. So in case there's any speed bumps or friction, we can get those worked out before the holidays.
Thank
Okay.
you. And Jeff, if there's time for another question later, I have one. Thank you.
Okay, but there probably won't be because we have another item. But we'll see. Okay, so anyone else from the public with questions? No. Okay, we're going to go to our last item. We only have 10 minutes left or less. And our last item is our SAC-RT first quarter update. And I think it's Kathy Sation. So
Yes,
you're up.
it is. Thank you, Jeff. So I wanted to bring it to your attention that I had made an error when I was reporting last month on the total ridership. The actual total ridership was 31,930. Instead, I had reported 27,334 for total ridership. So that's quite a difference. Actually, the 27,334 was the number of trips we had done, not the ridership. And Charles had asked if I could get some numbers in regards to how many, what was the percentage of trips being over the 60 minutes, being late. And so I did those numbers, and it's 0.34% of trips out of the total that were over the 60 minutes.
Okay. Anything else? Or is that it?
That was
Okay.
it.
Okay,
Mine
any
was quick and
questions
easy.
thank you. Any questions of Kathy? First from members in the room. No, members on Zoom. Okay, so now members of the public in the room. And members of the public on Zoom.
Margie.
Okay, Margie, I'll let you ask your question, and if you can get your other question in quickly, maybe we can do that too,
Okay.
if James is still here.
Okay, real quickly. Kathy, thank you for that report. I'm not sure why it was asked 60 minutes. The window is 30 of late pickup time. I would hope we could get a report on that in the future. How many late pickups based on the 30-minute window?
Yeah,
My
Margie,
sec-
I was
and
thinking,
that's
I was
just-
thinking the same thing, actually. I wonder why
Oh, that's
why
scary,
60?
Jeff.
This 60 minutes is
That's-
past the 30-minute window. And that's what Charles had asked. He wanted to know what the percentage was that missed the 30-minute window. Does that make sense?
No.
No, can you say that
doesn't,
again?
but-
I missed it
So we
too.
have the 30-minute window, and Charles wanted to know what the percentage was that was 60 minutes or more past the 30-minute.
Okay, all right, so,
And it's
Okay, and I-
0.34%. Sorry, I didn't word
I
it
would
right
like to see
correctly.
I'd like to see a report, and that's what I understood. I'd like to see a report of how many late trips past the 30 minutes window in the future. I'm not a MAC member, so the MAC has to direct that. My other question for Drake, sorry, James, I keep wanting to call you Drake James. So this is all booked a day in advance for the new SmartRide service. My brain doesn't process that word right now. Bunch of people cancel. Buses are sitting around. We can't book the same day. That seems like a waste of resources. And I know that's happened up here in Folsom. I know, and we've had 2 or 3 buses, and they're all sitting in the Walmart parking lot, but we can't get a ride for 45 minutes. And can you address that? How are you guys going to handle cancellations and maybe provide some same-day service if there's cancellations?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have some tools at our disposal to manage cancellations. I mean, for instance, we talked about, should we allow an earlier reservation window, 3 days or 4 days? And, our feeling was booking farther in advance would probably be more likely to lead to greater cancellations. So, by the same token, we think 48 hours will be about right. But once we're up and running, we'll have some real world experience with which we can change policy. You usually want something in this where it also works on the rider's end. If there's a repeat offender for late cancels or no shows, that may be a suspension of service. But we do think it's amenable to policy. To be sure, that's kind of separate from. We would like it to be on demand, but that may be a case of kind of a
Hang
good
on, I'm
problem
not
to
hearing
have.
you. I think
Hold
I'm
on,
hearing
hold on,
Helen.
Margie, quiet. Somebody needs to mute. We're hearing noise. Okay, go ahead,
Yeah.
James.
Yeah, I mean, to be sure, if there's genuinely unused capacity, not because of a bunch of cancellations the night before, but just because the typical day we have 100 reservations and we have capacity to move 300-400 people, then yeah, we'll just go to on demand. That'd be a great kind of problem to have. But that's a little different than having capacity because of massive cancellations. We hope that's not the case, but I think we'll have some tools and levers we can pull to control that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
thank
So
you, Jeff.
we are now on announcements or items for suggestions for items for subsequent meetings. Do any members have either one of those as we begin to wrap up here? Anybody on Zoom have any of those? Any of that? Okay. Do I have any announcements from the public?
I have one, Helen.
Okay.
I don't know if this is already going to be put on the agenda, but I was wondering if we could get a presentation about the service adjustments in Elk Grove and how that would have impact our service here in Sacramento. Because they're going to be increasing the frequency of their bus system, and it might not impact the RT Go, but it might impact the availability of drivers. And I'm always concerned about that. And I also would like to have a presentation on what you should do if there are massive amounts of cancellations on RT Big Bus and you can't get to their service center because they don't work at the time that you have your question, and they have been giving inaccurate information. I had this happen to me recently. So I called the accessible services and they did an excellent job. They gave me accurate information, and I was very lucky that I was able to get home because I didn't have very much electricity in my wheelchair, so I could not make the option of driving home from where I was. And if someone in an assisted device is unable to go around to different routes to get back home once they've gotten away from home, because the cancellations were not affected at the time that they left the beginning of their trip. But when they got to come back from their trip, there were cancellations. People don't really know that they need to check the website on the alert app. This is very concerning to me because I almost had to wait 3 hours for another bus, and it was a 15-minute service. So I was extremely happy and extremely thankful that the customer service, accessible service person was able to help me. But they closed down at 5 o'clock during the weekdays. So I wouldn't know how to get service information after that if there are massive cancellations. And the day that I was speaking of, there were 91 cancellations over the whole day.
Okay, so we will obviously on the next executive committee do some planning with you obviously involved for putting these items on the agenda for the MAC meeting. Okay, anyone else? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Helen
There's a
O'Connell.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, we are now adjourned. Thank you.
Hey,
Have a nice
everybody.
evening. Happy
Bye-bye.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving, Priscilla.